It is 3 o'clock, and thank you so much for joining our Ridiculously Amazing Schools webinar. I know that there are 1,000 things going on in schools and districts and buildings right now, so we are just so excited that you are taking the time to join us this afternoon. Jeff Waller and Tracy Smith are here with me, and they are the co-authors of Ridiculously Amazing Schools. Jeff Waller is also the co-creator of 7 Mindsets, Tracy Smith, the principal of Amazing Brookwood Elementary School. So I'm going to turn it over to them in just a couple of minutes. You should also see a chat box on your screen. If you want to ask any questions throughout the webinar today, if you will put your questions in the chat box, we will be monitoring the chat box throughout the webinar today. And as soon as Tracy and Jeff finish with their presentation and the material that they're going to talk to you about today, I will monitor the chat box, and then I will pose the questions that you put in that box to them at the end. So they're going to talk for about 30 minutes. They know that there are, again, many things going on, but the information they have to share is going to be ridiculously amazing. So again, thanks for joining us. Put your questions in the chat box. And with that, it is 3:01. I want to be cognizant of your time, and I would like to turn it over to Jeff and Tracy. Jeff?
All right. Thank you very, very much, Chelsea. It's awesome to be here. I know this is a crazy time, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and we really appreciate you being here with us today. My name's Jeff Waller, co-author of Ridiculously Amazing Schools, also co-founder of 7 Mindsets, and really the genesis of our book came from the work we've done the last 10 years working with schools, implementing our social and emotional learning solution, and really figuring out how can we help schools get to the next level? How can we make sure that they're implementing our program with higher and higher levels of fidelity and greater impact on the students that they serve? So that really is where this book came from. And as we thought about today, what we thought would be the best way for us to sort of share what's in the book was through the lens of a principal like Tracy. You know, when we did the research, we interviewed principals around the country, and that's how we've learned and developed the concepts in the book. So what I'd like to do is try to unfold this book through the lens of Tracy. And so what I was going to do is just ask her a few questions, let her kind of set things up, and we'll just see how that goes. Okay, makes sense? You ready to go, Tracy?
I am.
All right, here we go. So Tracy, tell us a little bit about the name Ridiculously Amazing Schools. The inspiration came from you, and that's how it got its title. So maybe you could share where that came from and what its inspiration was.
So I became a principal in the absolute worst time in the world. It was 2008, and we were going into a recession. Our school was being redistricted, and we were a needs improvement school. So, you know, it was just so fun. So when we came together, we were losing teachers, gaining students that were coming to school not ready to learn, and it was really, really hard. Class sizes were going higher. We had taken salary cuts, and we're losing school days. So throughout a 2-year journey, during those really, really rough times when we were also worried about having to feed our students and helping them get to school, we looked at the situation and said, all right, what is it that we really, really want? And it was one of our teachers that had a sign in her room that said, make every day ridiculously amazing. And so that kind of became our mantra to get us through those times of the only thing that we can control is how we look at the situation. And we are here to support and love kids. And we realized through that we were there also to support and love each other. And that is where Ridiculously Amazing Schools was born.
That's great. You know, I know when we go into schools, sometimes there's a vibe. You know, there's just this feeling you get when you walk into a school, and it's awesome. And I remember when the first time I walked into Mashburn, it just had this feeling about it. The way the teachers were walking the halls, the way the kids were engaged. There was just an energy that was infectious. In fact, one of our colleagues used to call Mashburn educational Disneyland, which I always thought was this really great metaphor for what it must be like for a kid to go to that school and be around that type of environment. And I thought you guys just did a great job of finding ways each and every day to do things that were fun and unique, that made the experience memorable, not just for the students, but for the teachers that were helping working with the kids. Well, that's great. Thank you, Tracy. So tell me something, as you started to write this book, I know you've been thinking about writing a book for a long time. And what was it that made you want to write this book? What is it that you want this book to have? What's the impact that you want it to have? What's the key thing that you're looking to get out of the book?
Well, so I'm a reader, and I'm a dork. I love to read anything educational, anything about leadership. And I kept finding that all of the books that I would read were about the kids. And, you know, we absolutely are in the business for kids, but I wanted to create something around the journey and the learning experiences that we have learned through creating our Ridiculously Amazing School about the adult relationships in the building. Because really, if you want to get to the kids, you have to get to the teachers in the building. So I wanted to write a book that I wish I had had, you know, 12 years ago in 2008 as I was beginning my principalship and my educational journey through that lens.
Yeah, you know, and for me, it was, if you really look at schools that have what I would call a sustainable, incredible culture, you know, that year after year, it's just a place kids want to be, parents want their kids to be at, teachers love working at. The part of the mechanics of a school that's sustainable, that continues year in, year out, are the teachers and the educators, right? So you know, there's a quote one of our interviewees told us, that it takes the whole teacher to teach the whole child. And I remember being impacted by that. But if you really want to create a thriving, sustainable culture, it happens through the ways that the adults in the building relate. And then that gets passed on to the way that we interact and impact the students. And so that very much is the focus of this book. It's about how do we work with the way that we relate and interact with one another so that we can be at our very best at those moments, you know, when we're changing the world, impacting the students that we teach. So yeah, that's great. Okay, so this book talks a lot about a courageous school. What does it mean for a school to be courageous?
So I am going to talk a little bit about my current situation this week. And I know that much of the United States is in my boat right now. Our system made the decision last night to close schools. We are only closed for 1 week, and we'll make a decision beginning of next week if it's going to be another week or not. Many schools have already closed for a couple of weeks. We are preparing to be closed for 2 to 4 weeks here in Forsyth County. So as we have been working through, you know, helping parents, dealing with this situation, communicating it out, I keep in my mind of, okay, we are without a doubt a courageous school. Everything that I do in my building is around building trust, belonging, and significance. And as I communicate things, it is about creating that trust, significance, and belonging with my staff, how to pour into them during this time, and then how to help them create that now through virtual learning with their parents. And so really courageous schools are those schools who look toward and lean in to building trust amongst the stakeholders, who value, you know, their teachers and build significance with their teachers and help them find, you know, okay, what is your purpose here, and how can you create this opportunity even in this situation when it's really, really bad, and flip it. And the last one is belonging. And, you know, for us right now, it's the clarity, and that's one of the elements of a courageous school, of how are we clearly identifying for our families that we care about their students. How am I clearly identifying to my teachers that we are here to support them and get through this crazy time that we've never dealt with anything like this before, and to use that clarity to continue to build that trust, belonging, and significance within my building. And it's really, as hard as this week has been, knowing that this day was coming, it has been beautiful to watch our teachers lean in on one another. There's been some storming, and we've worked through it together. And I really feel like we've come out of it as a staff stronger and more connected because of it. So to me, looking at these three conditions are what makes a school courageous.
Yeah, and one thing I learned from you, because I remember when I would talk to teachers. There's so many amazing educators out there that care so much for their students, so much so that it gives them courage. That if there's a kid in need, it somewhere in that they find the strength to do what they need to do, to be in that moment, to be there for that kid and to be great. But that's a really hard thing to sustain as an individual. And that what courageous schools understand is that the greatest source of courage is the people around us. And if we don't have to act independently and alone, if we know that we're supported, if we trust the people around us, if we can take a chance and know that if we fail, it's going to be okay. We're not going to be bad-mouthed, and people are going to actually pat us on the back for trying and learning from it. If we feel like we're having an impact, that people appreciate and respect us, that we go home at night feeling good about the work that we do. And if we feel like we'll belong, like people care about us and that we're part of a community that supports each other and holds each other accountable, that is a source of courage. It gives us the ability to act in a situation like what you're going through now. If it gives us stability, and it gives us a foundation to not panic and to make good rational decisions, and kind of move forward with courage. And so, that word just came out in a lot of our interviews, was courage, 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 courage. And it's such a strong and powerful word. And we just wanted schools to understand that it takes courage to be a great school. And that courage comes from, people really caring about that kid, but it also comes from people caring about each other and giving each other the confidence to take some chances and do some things that have never been done before. Okay. So in the book, we talk about this concept of these critical moments in education that are so important, not just with the work that we do with the kids, but our relationships to our colleagues. Would you share a little bit about kind of that principle?
So this is probably my favorite principle in the book because it's so meaningful. And it's one of the easiest things to recognize and focus on in your building every day. So whether you are in a classroom, if you're a support teacher, if you're in the front office, if you're a custodian, or if you're an administrator, every moment matters. I have this quote in my office and it's in the book. It says, relationships are constructed at every intersection. And, if you look in your own building at the different intersections that you have, and every time that you come up to a person in your building, you are at an intersection. And it's in those moments when relationships really are constructed. So even in the morning when you're coming in, if are you walking by, your colleagues and just trying to get to your room? Are you just trying to get to your office? Are you just wanting to make it to this spot? Are you coming in and you're checking in with people and you're high-fiving, or hey, I saw last night on Facebook that you guys got a new puppy, or, how we have a teacher right now whose daughter is going through cancer treatment. We're all checking in on her. It's every little intersection that you have. It's the same thing with kids. In the morning, my duty is at one of the intersections. It's called the T in our building, and we play fun music, and I'm high-fiving, and it gives me, there's a 25-minute chunk of time that I'm interacting with kids, with adults, with parents, and you get to just check in on them, and they're all moments of context. And you, as a person, can remember when somebody said something to you, good or bad, that either lifted you up in such a way and it went straight to your heart that right now you're thinking of that person, or on the flip, when somebody lost an opportunity to make that connection with you and it kind of left a hole in your heart. Or maybe you've done that. You've had that opportunity with somebody, or you lost a moment. There's so many times when I've thought, you know what, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go check on them. Or I didn't say hey to that person because I was trying to get to this. Like, I'm going to shoot them a quick email, because relationships really are constructed at every intersection. And those are those moments of context that really build a courageous school and make coming to school fun every day.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know in my own life, I think back, when I was going through school, or, the relationships I have with my wife or my kids, and, there's a lot of memories, but there's certainly moments that I remember the most that define a lot of my experience in high school and middle school, that define the relationship I have with my wife. And it's those moments that you need to be ready for when they're in front of you, right? So, let's say a teacher shows up one day to school and clearly something's off. They're having a bad day. Maybe something's really going wrong in their life. And how we handle that moment can define the nature of our relationship and the nature of their feelings about the place that they work for a long, long time. And I think when you get mindful of that and you recognize that those opportunities exist and you have the ability to stop what you're doing and be right there in front of that person and give them the very best of you, is the place that you're building those relationships that ultimately make schools really courageous.
And Jeff, I want to add, so another one of the elements in the book is nurture. And so for me, it was such a learning experience when one of my peers, Derek Hershey, who's the principal of now Sawney Elementary here in Forsyth County, he shared a story one time about catching his staff. And he shared a story about, as a leader, or even if you're a classroom teacher, when a kid comes in, you can do the same thing. If a teacher comes in late or, something is clearly going on, you don't want to catch them, you want to catch them.
Yeah.
And so even really going to that teacher to say, hey, is everything okay? What can I do to support you today? Even if it is that they just got up late and, we're just running late for whatever reason, they feel vulnerable enough that you're not trying to catch them, but you really do genuinely care. And I have found that has improved some of those people who are, just strolling in a little too late or get a little too comfortable. But honestly, also, I have found some really sad situations where people have said, I haven't told you, but now I'm taking care of my mom and she's not doing well. And it's like, oh my goodness, what do you need? How can we help you? And that nurture element, of what makes a courageous school, that builds the foundation of strength within your school. And so when you talk about coming in and being happy or being excited about coming to work, we all want to come to a place where we feel supported, where we feel valued, where we feel trusted, and we feel that sense of belonging in a place of significance, and that people truly care. And those are those moments of context. And I think about that as a teacher. I could do it with my kids. When that kid's coming in and they're a little bit saucy or they're a little bit, it's like, hey, bud, is everything okay? What's going on? Because that's when you can also learn a whole lot about what happened last night instead of another adult catching them instead of catching them.
You're right. It's so easy to default to the least of them. It's so, they're late again, they're irresponsible, whatever it is, right? You're frustrated, you got to cover whatever it is. And if you can just change your perspective and say, I'm going to assume the best here. I'm going to assume that something's happening in their life, and, and come at it from that perspective of belief, of seeing the best in them, expecting more from them. That doesn't mean you're not going to deal with the fact that they're showing up late, right? That
Yep,
mean
we
that
have
we're
to have
not
those
dealing with the stuff that's happening.
conversations too.
Yeah, we're just coming at it from a perspective of belief, of nurture. And you would just be amazed at how much people appreciate that versus you just coming at it from a perspective of, lack, of whatever in those people. So that's a really great point. Thank you, Tracy. So one thing about the book, it's set up in a way, and we talked a little bit about trust, belonging, and significance. And we call those the 3 conditions of courage. And then we have these 5 elements: clarity, conflict, belief, nurture, and play. And maybe you could explain a little bit, Tracy, what's the difference between the conditions of courage and the elements that we use to sort of talk about the schools in the book?
All right, so I'm totally stealing your analogy on this because you explain it the very best. So I'm going to try to do as good a job as you do. So if you think about a garden, and you think about what a garden needs, when you think about the trust, belonging, and significance, those are the conditions. That's your soil, the nutrients. That's what is in the ground. When you think about the elements, clarity, conflict, belief, nurture, and play, that's what you do to the garden in order to support its growth. So those are the things that you add to it. So how I look at it as a school leader or as a classroom teacher is that I am always working to build trust, belonging, and significance within my building. And how I get there is by working on clarity, working on, we have the word conflict, but it's really helping people deal with healthy conflict and discourse. Focusing on belief and finding the greatness in teachers, the nurture aspect of supporting them and catching them. And then my most favorite one that we as adults just tend to forget is play, and the value of play in any workplace, not just schools, but in any workplace. And those are the 5 things that through our research that we found really promote trust, belonging, and significance. So it's a garden, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what the book does is it really lays out clarity, conflict, belief, nurture, and play. And it explains what those are. It gives some great case studies. And then what I like the most is it shares sort of best practices, what the best schools in the country are doing, to truly create clarity. How do we get people on the same page? How do I know each and every day I'm doing something that is in alignment with the school, and that if I'm successful, I'm helping the school be successful? How do I create an environment where, look, conflict is hard. It's often very detrimental to schools because people don't deal with it very well. But conflict is really the source of a great relationship. If you think about your own great relationships in life, right? It's because you've been through some battles together. You haven't always seen eye to eye, and you fought through that. And when you do that, you learn to trust someone, and you kind of know that the relationship can handle it. And not only that, but conflict, it's the source of creativity. If you have constructive debate, that's when 2 people with different perspectives find a common ground and come to a better answer. And the way that a school handles conflict is critical. And you just have a lot of schools that it's either too much out and open and it's adverse, or people just hide from it and don't understand that it's necessary. Belief is so important, right? Just like we were talking about, how do I view my colleagues? Am I looking at them from a place where I see the greatness in them? Am I helping them see the greatness in themselves? Am I giving them the confidence so that they can then go be their very best in front of their students? And we talked about nurture and play, but that's the idea, is that we really want to create these nutrients in the ground of trust, belonging, and significance. We want those to be there so that our teachers can be courageous, so they can take action, they can be confident and comfortable and engaged. In the way that we build those things, the way that we fertilize the soil, the way that we give it sunlight, the way that we, water it is through these strategies of building clarity, conflict, belief, nurture, and play. And that's what the book is built around, is that framework. And in the book and also online, we have a survey that you can take individually, but you can also take it collectively as an organization. What I really love is, you can take it, you can see where you're strong, where you're not. Then you can look at the different strategies in the book and figure out what are some things that are going to help you with where you're at and move forward. And so it's really been designed as a practical guide to not just sort of lay out this framework, but to give someone a real meaningful, substantial way to start taking action and then measure and see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So just one last question, Tracy, before we head out, we're going to close here in a minute or two, but maybe you could share if there were one thing that you've learned over the last year, writing this book and working with these educators that you would think would be most critical as educators think about using this book to help them, not just with social emotional learning, but to transform the school culture and help in every aspect of academics. What would it be?
So there are so many things that I have learned on this journey, but I think one of the biggest things, Jeff, has been that anything that we can do to invest in each other is going to make our schools better. And one of the reasons I especially love this book is because even though I was able to co-author the book with you and be, a part of identifying these conditions and elements, I still use this book as a guide for how we do business here at Brookwood Elementary. And so it really helps me to identify when I'm going through a situation or if I'm looking at planning, because right now I'm already in 2021, and all right, what is it as a staff that we need to focus on? What is it that this grade level needs? And where does it fall? The survey, where does it fall within, the elements? I've got one grade level that right now is working on trust, and that's building trust with each other. I've got another grade level right now that they're rocking and rolling, but, they really need clarity because they're just kind of all over the place, and we need to find our California. And so, my guidance for people and my advice for people is just be so open that you flip your thinking in, those relationships are constructed at every intersection, and that everything that we do to invest in one another is going to help our schools be better. And coupled with the guidance of the book, and I even do the surveys, and I have my teachers do the surveys because that helps guide them.
Yeah, that's great. I think, for me, I remember you used to, I forget the term you use, but I'm just a teacher complex, right? That.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it drives me crazy. I'm just a teacher. Like, no, you're like a world changer.
Yeah. And this idea that your role stops at the four walls of your classroom or your office, and that you're bigger than that, and that you ultimately have massive influence, not just on the students in your class, but on every teacher in the building and every student in the building. And that if you can make another teacher better, right, then we all get better. And just that idea of, expanding our mindset beyond the four walls of our classroom, understanding that we have a very critical role to everybody in the building, and that each and every day we might have a greater impact by influencing one teacher one day, right, than by influencing a classroom of students. And just that perspective, as we talked with teachers or principals and spoke about it, was eye-opening for me. And I thought just a really great way to frame this book, that, if we can collectively come together, if we can collectively understand that, we can all be better together, and we can make this a place where we can bring out the very best in you. And you're going to feel great about the work that you do, and you're going to feel great about the people that you're doing it with. Then we can create a ridiculously amazing school, and not only that, we can create something that's going to transcend us. It's going to sustain. And as new people come in and people leave, it's just going to be part of the way that we do things. And so that's what gets me excited. So
me too.
Tracy, did you want to add anything else before I wrap up? Any last thoughts?
Nope.
Okay. Well, that's been great. I really appreciate it, Tracy. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Just to let you know, if you're interested in learning more about Ridiculously Amazing Schools, you can email us at info@7mindsets.com. You can call us at 678-878-3144. We do quite a few things. Obviously, we can come out and do professional developments. We can do that at the district level with principals and leadership teams, or we can come into individual schools and do that. We have an online survey that I think is a fantastic tool that's included in our portal that you can take individually, or that every teacher and educator in your school can take, and you can see how you're doing in all these key areas. We'll get that information, and you can have a phone call with myself to sort of go through the results and see how that goes. And one thing that we're also very, very excited about is the fact that we developed an online learning tool. And a lot like the lessons in our portal, this is an online tool that allows teachers and leadership teams to walk through the process of Ridiculously Amazing Schools and have the discussion and sort of find the common ground and come up with the strategies and develop the plans. And it's just going to be a great tool that's going to allow schools to sustain and grow and expand upon maybe what they see in the book or an initial professional development. So that's all available. The other thing that we're really excited about, and I would be remiss without mentioning that, because obviously we got some major trauma that's going on in our country, in the world around the coronavirus. And we know that there's a lot of schools and a lot of teachers out there that are struggling with how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with uncertainty, how to deal with ambiguity, how to help their teachers feel comfortable, how to help parents feel at ease, how to help their kids. And we know these are very difficult and new and challenging conversations that are coming at all of us in many different ways. And what we've done is created a whole bunch of resources and lessons that we can use to enter into the conversation. Sometimes just talking about it and letting people discuss it, understand how they feel about it, is some of the best therapy and the best medicine that we'll ever have. And so we've done that. We're really excited to roll that out. And again, if you're interested in learning more about that, or perhaps getting a demo from our sales team, you can email us at info@7mindsets.com or call us at 678-878-3144. So that is what we got. I think what we need to do now is hand it back to Chelsea. I know there may or may not have been questions. So Chelsea, you want to let us know?
Yes, of course. That was so great. Thank you guys so much for sharing all that awesome information. And we had so many people viewing and listening. One question I had, you already answered, Jeff, was about the assessment that is in the book and then online. So I believe you answered that. If you want to say anything else about that, I'll give you a couple seconds. Did you want to mention anything else?
I mean, I think Tracy and I said we want to create something that helps people truly change. And, one key piece is let's see where we're at. Let's see where we have the big opportunity. And then let's take some action on it. And then let's see how we're doing. And so we created this 42 question survey that, every teacher in your school or every educator in school can take. And it's going to give you a clear picture of how you're doing. And what's your trust level? Do people feel like they belong? How significant your teachers feel? Do they feel like you deal with conflict effectively? Do they feel like you believe in each other? And it helps you identify where you could spend your time to have the greatest impact on the culture of your school. And what we love about it is there's a pre and post, and you can keep taking it and you can keep trying and doing things. And this isn't like Tracy said, this isn't a book that you read and put on yourself. It's a guide. It's a process that we want our schools to go through so they can truly change and truly, create a space where their teachers are happier and, impacting their students at a higher level.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And then I have two questions for Tracy. One, you mentioned finding your California. And I know that is one of my favorite things to read about and one of my favorite people where it came from. Will you explain a little bit about finding your California?
Yes. So I had an amazing mentor, Ellen Cohan, who would always talk with us, as leaders about you have to know where you're going. And so she would always say, all right, where's your California? And so, that really is, all right, what is your end destination? So at Brookwood, our California is our mission statement, developing connection, collaboration, and conceptual understanding. And whenever we, today at our faculty meeting, when we were talking about pushing out online learning. So our expectation here in Forsyth County is that it's a normal day, but it's all virtual. And so we talked about our California. Like, my staff knows what I mean when I say, all right, guys, we got to find our California. So for connection, our California is that our students still feel cared about, and our parents. So this is allowing us to go just a little bit deeper with our families so that they can kind of see what we do for their children every day, and that our families feel supported, because we understand that this is hard on them also. They're going to be trying to work from home, or they're going to be trying to figure out how this looks while their kids are online learning, and that they may not know how to do these things or the content also. Then we move to the collaboration, and what is our California for collaboration? And that's within our team levels. How are we working together and leaning in on one another to get this online learning going? And how do we celebrate that together? And it's been so fun to watch our teachers learn new things, and, you know, and let different people lead things and step up when they haven't in the past. And then the last one is the conceptual understanding, which is the rigor. And so what's our, as Brookwood, what's our conceptual understanding mission? What's our California for this online learning? And that is how do we provide opportunities that are engaging and meaningful to kids that are online, you know, and that's not just a video and a discussion board. And really that having that clarity piece has been life-changing, but that is what's your California. So if you live in California, you could say, what's your Georgia? You know, it's whatever you want it to be, or if, you know, if it's, you know, what's your Niagara Falls, you know, what's your end point that you want to get to? And then you can figure out how to get there along, that's your journey. But you got to know where you're going.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, I love that concept. So thank you for explaining that a little bit more. I have a question from a teacher that is wondering, she actually is a 7 Mindsets educator, teaches 7 Mindsets in her classroom in a middle school, and is wondering if you can access the Ridiculously Amazing Schools content in the 7 Mindsets portal. Jeff?
Yes, it will be available. It will be available the 1st of April. So, but if you are a customer and you have access to our portal, it will also be available for you.
Great, thanks. And then I just had one more, and I think that this is a great one to end on. For you, Tracy, for a lot of leaders that are listening right now, leaders of districts and leaders of buildings, and they know that in order to create trust and significance and belonging and, you know, with the people in their influence, they know they need to lead that initiative. They know that that's their garden to cultivate. But if they need help with that, they know that it has to start with them before that they can go and lead others. Where do they start if they need help doing that for themselves first? What's your advice?
I mean, well, obviously, like, they need to buy the book. But, and here's why. Here's why I tell you that. Because we wrote this book for those people. So we wrote this for somebody who wanted a guide to help them do exactly that. And one of the amazing things that we learned along this journey is that ridiculously amazing schools look different. You know, we all learn from one another. Leadership at ridiculously amazing schools looks different. You don't have to be just like me. You know, I don't have to be just like one of my peers who has a ridiculously amazing school. We lean on each other and learn from each other, and we lead it genuinely from our hearts. And part of that too, that I think is in the book, is that you allow yourself to be vulnerable with your staff. You know, I sent an email last night that said, hey guys, I just wanted to just tell you my thoughts. Like, I right now have, I don't know how I feel. You know, I'm not so scared of getting the virus. I'm more anxious about how this is going to look and how we're going to do everything that we do online. And I think that my staff just needed to hear that. And then we went on to, you know, talk about some other things, but I got that courage to do that from the book, you know, because that's what it helps you navigate that if my California is creating a ridiculously amazing school, that is supporting the adult learner and the adult relationships in the building. So that's where I really would start with just reading the book. And I love the part because in the back of each chapter, it has, you know, what are you going to do next? What are you going to, you know, what could you do tomorrow? How are you going to change things in your building? I don't know what that noise is. I'm sorry. What a ridiculous thing it still sounds like at almost 4 o'clock.
Yeah, you talked about being a genuine leader and in your leadership, and genuinely, you are sitting there in your office with children playing in the background. So
I am. Actually, those are teachers in the office next door, so I don't know what they're doing.
Well, there you go. Ridiculously amazing schools. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just gonna say, one of my favorite quotes is Brene Brown. You know, when you're vulnerable, you're beautiful, you're powerful. And, you know, I've always admired Tracy because I think she's a great leader. And I think she is a great leader because when she's vulnerable, she's powerful. And your ability as a leader to do that, it changes the game for your ability to get more out of your team. And so I think that's a great point.
And, you know, I'm just gonna add, when I got to Brookwood, I think it was hard for the teachers to accept that for me in the beginning. And so if if you're in a building and you're like, all right, this is how I'm gonna redefine myself, and we get to redefine ourselves every year. That's the beauty of our jobs. You know, it just takes time, you know, and I had, you know, one teacher look at me and she's like, you really believe all this crap? Like, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to get, like, this is what we do. And, you know, that again goes back to those moments of context in that you get to prove yourself, whether you're the principal leading other teachers or other principals, or you're in that classroom with your kids or your families or your peers. You know, it's in those moments of context when you get to build those relationships and to show that, yeah, guys, we believe this stuff. I believe in you, and I am here to support you as much as I am for me.
Well, that's great, Tracy. I really appreciate your time. We've pretty much about ready to wrap up, but I just want to thank you, thank Chelsea, thank everybody who helped put this together, thank everyone who's participated. I want to wish everyone the best of luck and give you my prayers for what we're about ready to go through. None of us really know what this is going to look like. I know there's a lot of uncertainty, but I also know that this too will pass, and we're going to get through this. But thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and best of luck. And my prayers go out to every one of you over the next week, months, that we get through this and come back stronger than ever. Thank you.
Thank you so much.